this is a struggle sometimes to get this to work. You have no idea. But anyways, this is going to be a little different from my other Idiot Atheist Bible verses, because I'm just going to discuss Exodus. You know, you already have people, they do videos of, Exodus and Noah's flood and all this stuff. But we're just going to discuss Exodus. First off, let's start with Benjamin. No, I'm sorry, not Benjamin, Joseph. Joseph gets, taken as a slave into Egypt. And Potiphar's wife accuses him of trying to assault her, and then he gets thrown into jail, and eventually becomes the second highest ruler in Egypt. Now, people who read the Bible that believe this stuff, they read that story and they show that, oh, see, God was with him, God did this and all that, but they don't think about how Egypt was at that time and how their religion was organized. I would prefer for you to look up something called Mot, M-A, and that's apostrophe A-T. They believe that the Pharaoh, they basically believe that the Pharaoh was like the protector, basically a god, and was to prevent chaos. Now, there's no way, if you once you start learning about what Mot is and about how the Pharaoh and all that stuff was organized, you'll realize there's no way on earth that they're going to choose a Hebrew as second in command, especially someone who does not understand or believe their religion. There's just no way that's going to happen. That is just 0% chance of that happening. And then let's start with the Exodus itself. First off, you got the 10 plagues. Now, okay, people say, well, there's no evidence, and of course, these religious people tell you, well, the Egyptians didn't record the bad stuff that happened to them, only the good stuff, which, if you actually look these things up, you'll know that's not completely true. But anyways, they had neighbors around them that certainly would have recorded these things, but they never did. And let's think about it. They lost all their firstborn. Pretty much their entire military was wiped out. All their food was wiped out. All the plants they ate, all the animals they ate, pretty much was wiped out. The Hebrew slaves equal the number of people that were in Egypt at the time, so they lose half their population. They also lost their pharaoh and probably some other high-ranking individuals. There's no way on earth that Egypt would not have been invaded. No way. The Philistines and others would have invaded Egypt. There's just no way that nobody would have invaded Egypt. Think about that, though. How did they prevent from being invaded? They would have been invaded, because that is prime time for them to be invaded. And then, of course, you got the Exodus itself as they're leaving. Now, some people, they mock the 40 years. How did it take 40 years, And I get it. That don't make no sense to complain about that, because their God tells them you're going to wander in this desert for 40 years. He tells them you cannot enter the promised land. So to complain about that makes absolutely no sense. But here's what makes no sense. These people have seen these miracles of this God, okay? They've seen what this God can do several times. And they also saw him slaughter a bunch of their people and all these things. Are we really supposed to believe that all of a sudden they were afraid to enter the promised land? That they wouldn't believe that their God could have done something to help them out? I'm sure there would have been some people, some weak-kneed people that would have been afraid. But for the most part, please, good and well, they would not have been afraid. They would probably be, all of them, pushing Moses, well, not Moses because he was already dead. He didn't but Joshua out of the way. But, there's a whole lot more into it than what I'm saying. Go check out the Bible Skeptic. Check out, now they call themselves Hugo and Jake. Check out their channels. But seriously, the Exodus just simply doesn't work. And same with Noah's flood. I want to discuss Noah's flood. I might as well. Why Noah's flood does not work. Not just the fact that all those animals on the ark. First off, how did you clean up the animals? And then you have that one window. I mean, come on, that makes no sense. But okay, after the ark. Okay, you have 2 of every animals. They got to eat. And supposedly at that point in time is when they became meat eaters. If you want to believe that. Okay, wouldn't a lot of the animals go extinct because there's no way you have 2 of every clean creature, 7 of every unclean creature? A lot of them would go extinct pretty quick. Not to mention the fact we should see fossils of, evidence of their migration to all these continents, unless you want to believe that God took them back home, which I suppose you can say that. That's usually what people do when they can't prove what they're saying. They'll say, well, God did it. A miracle happened, you know. It's like in movies, they can't explain how someone gets money, all of a sudden they win the lottery, or money just given to them, or whatever, some miraculous event just happens. Same concept. Noah's flood and Exodus really, it just doesn't work out. I mean, you guys understand what do they eat? The plants have to have time to grow, because there's no way the plants are going to survive. And you're going to say, well, God protected the plants. Well, your book doesn't say that, and you really cannot just keep invoking, well, God did this, God did that miracle, God did that, because you're just making things up because you're trying to fill in the holes in your little ideology, and it just doesn't work. Well, religion in this case, it just doesn't work. It makes no sense. Well, that's probably about it, all I have to say. I'm sure I'll think of others after I'm done with this video, but what difference does it make? Can't make money off of these things anymore. Bye.